Today's episode of The Mom Game is brought to you by our friends at Gateway Buick GMC at LBJ and Jupiter. I know that buying a car can be stressful, but not at Gateway, because their slogan is Gateway's got it. And just what does that mean? Well, it means Gateway's got a wide selection of new Buicks, GMCs, and GM certified used vehicles, all competitively priced. Gateway's got it. In these busy times, you want a car dealer who makes things easy and convenient. Well, guess what? Gateway's got it. When you log on to gatewaybuickgmc.com, look for the Shop, Click, Drive button. This allows you to shop from the comfort of your home, and who doesn't want that? In fact, it's as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1, select your vehicle. 2, create your offer. 3, schedule your delivery. And on top of all this, Gateway Buick GMC offers complimentary car washes for life. So when you want a car dealer who has it all, Gateway's got it. You can find them online at gatewaybuickgmc.com or shop in person at LBJ and Jupiter. GMC, we are professional grade. Experience the new Buick. Welcome to episode 131 of The Mom Game. I'm Emily Jones. She's Julie Dobbs. And I'm so excited. We have the CEO of the Dallas Mavericks, the fabulous Cynt Marshall.
Hello, my sister.
I mean, okay, so we have this term, term we use in baseball, like in a clubhouse. And Adolis Garcia, we call him an energy giver.
Oh, yes.
You are an energy giver.
Yes.
Like I was, before you got here, I'm like, I was kind of hungry.
Yes.
And I don't like, now I'm like, I just want to, I just want to soak in this energy because you got it.
I got it.
Where does it come from? Because you got a lot of it.
I don't know. It's somewhere deep within, I think.
Yeah.
I just think it's deep within. I just enjoy life.
Yeah.
At this point in my life, I know the value of life and to enjoy it every single day.
Yeah.
And I do. I mean, that's part of my mission on earth, is to bring that energy, give life, optimism, hope, all of that.
Okay, and we got so much to talk about. You've written a book. I cannot wait to read it. I'm so thrilled that you brought them for us.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
But we like to kind of go in. Sometimes we're all over the place. Just so you know, we're all over the place. But
that's okay.
I feel like kind of let's get to know little Cynt Marshall and kind of how this all started, because all the joy that you have, it did not come without some pain and suffering along the way.
Correct.
And so we want to learn about
dig in
about
a little
you.
bit.
Yeah.
And we'll
let's
talk
dig in.
Mavs after that.
Yeah.
Let's dig in. Okay, so I spent the first 47 years of my life in the San Francisco Bay Area, minus 3 months. So born in Birmingham, Alabama. My parents left Birmingham, Alabama when I was literally 3 months old, because they didn't want their 4 kids at the time, I mean, there's 6 of us now, to grow up in the Jim Crow segregated South. Mm-hmm. They had just gone through too much, and they just said, no. One of my aunts and uncles had moved to the Bay Area. They're like, we're going to follow them. And 3 years after that is when the 16th Street Baptist Church was bombed in Birmingham, and the 4 little black girls lost their lives. And I always think of that because I have 3 sisters. So my mom and dad, they had 4 little black girls.
Wow.
And so I just always think about them and the sacrifice they made. And so we grew up in the Bay Area in a public housing project. And, I describe it as I had a good childhood. But when I talk about some of the things that happened in my childhood, people are like, how do you think that's a good childhood? Well, because things happen. And so I grew up poor. When I was 11 years old, I saw my father shoot a man in the head in self-defense. And actually more in defense of me, because all this commotion had broken out at our front door. And my mother took the 6 kids and told us to go in the back room and shoved us in there. But I wanted to know what was going on. I was, believe it or not, I know you're going to find this hard to believe, I was actually a quiet kid. I know you find it hard to believe.
That is hard to believe.
That was a long time ago,
Yeah.
okay? But I was actually a quiet kid, so I would just sit with, and I joke about how I always say my mother put 2 books in my hand at an early age, a math book in one hand and a Bible in the other, and pretty much said, keep your head in these 2 books and you'll get out. And at that time, I didn't know what out was, but pretty much out of poverty. And so I was just an inquisitive kind of kid, okay? And so all this commotion was going on at the front door. I sneaked out of the back room to go to the front door because I wanted to see what was going on. And when I got to the front door, that's when my father realized that I was no longer in the back room with my mom and my 5 brothers and sisters, but actually in the potential pathway of a bullet. Because the young man, 17-year-old young man that we actually went to church with, okay, so we knew the family. And I don't know what the whole altercation was about, but he had a silver pistol pointed, and then he pointed down to me.
Oh, my goodness.
Okay, because all of a sudden, I'm on my dad's right side. I'm supposed to be in the back room. You could imagine. I mean, so young man lost his eye. Fortunately, it wasn't fatal. My dad was in the military. He said if it was meant to be fatal, it would have been fatal. Okay, he was defending his family, actually me at that time. And so all this chaos broke out in our neighborhood.
Yeah.
My father didn't do any, jail time. Total self-defense. But we had to be sequestered in the house for safety purposes. And so I cried because I wanted to go to school. Because I was taught at an early age that was just, what I was supposed to do. And so school was the safety place for me. I loved school. I just lived to go to school. And so my mom figured out a way. See, mothers, I'm telling you, something about moms. Okay?
We know
Moms figure this stuff out. Okay? So my mother, when everybody else was like, okay, and I was like, I gotta go to school, I gotta go. I was in the 7th grade, right? 11 years old. My mother got a uniformed police officer to take me to school every day for the rest of that year. So he would show up in his police car and pretty much give me a choice. You want to ride in the police car? And I'd say, put the siren on. Of course, he'd never put the siren on. Or he would ride the bus with me in his uniform. And he did exactly what was written on his car. He protected and he served.
That's awesome.
Do you still have contact with him?
I don't, and in fact, someone told me recently they're going to try to find him.
Yes.
His name is, it was Officer Daryl Prater, and so I don't know if he's still alive. I don't know where he is. I would just love to find him, to thank him.
Bring him to Mavs game.
Yeah, just thank him for what he did
can
for
you
me.
imagine, girl did good.
It's like, okay, you for taking me to school.
You invested your time in a good
important.
project.
Yeah.
It's like when I got this job, and they have the security and different ones who follow you around, and they're trying to explain it to me. I said I had Secret Service when I was 11 years old.
I'm very well versed.
It's okay. It's okay. And then 4 years later, my parents got a divorce. My mom was the victim of domestic violence for as long as I could remember. And so the summer of 1975, she filed for divorce. And it just so happened to be my father found out via public notice the day my brother was graduating from high school. He was 2 years ahead of me. And so all hell just broke out, literally, in our house before graduation. And so, we had to call the police, all kind of stuff. But we still went to the graduation because my mom just dusted everything off, wiped herself up and just wiped us up and said, we got to go to the graduation. So police took my brother in the police car and then took the rest of us to the graduation. And that night we ended up going to my sister's home, who was 19 years old, who had already gotten married, to get away from things. And we spent the entire summer with her in her one-bedroom apartment with her husband, my mom, my sisters and brothers, and made it back home. My mother's prayer was that we would make it back home before school started because education was everything. At this point, I'm a junior in high school. I'm going to be hair cheerleader, okay, and head of our math, engineering, science achievement organization, all that, because they had me on this engineering track. And we went back home. We finally made it back home a week before school started, but a week or two before that, my father broke my nose because one of my youngest sisters had knee surgery. We all ran track. Okay, so I was sent to sprint. Okay, so the four girls ran track, awesome. Brothers baseball, all that. And he showed up to the hospital for the surgery, and then it got violent, attacked my mom, and I jumped in the middle of it, as we all did, to try to break it up. And I end up, I still have the scar where he broke my nose.
Wow.
And fortunately, but there's always an upside, okay, always. Fortunately, I was in a hospital. And so they rushed me into surgery. The doctors told my mom that if it had gone up another centimeter, we'd be talking about something really bad. But I was at the hospital. They took care of it. We made it back home before school started, and we had one mattress for me and my youngest sister to sleep on. And my father had taken our furniture, our clothes, all kind of stuff. Eventually, it all started to come back. But we walked into an empty place. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget it because, I'm 15. I have a sister who's 13. My brother's 12. And so we're like, where's our stuff? Where's our stuff? And my mom just said, I want everybody to be quiet. And the house was just quiet. And she smiled. She said, all I want is peace of mind. God will provide. That is what was important in her life, was peace of mind. It taught me a very valuable lesson about what really is important. Stuff is not important. And so she says, you're going to go back to school next week. We're like, how are we going to get clothes? Well, somehow we got clothes, okay? And so I went back to school with that brace on my nose. And that's when 3 teachers, I'll never forget them, 3 teachers and a principal, wanted to know what was going on. I'm head cheerleader. My mom said, you just go back, you do your thing. So I'm kicking, I'm screaming, I'm like, go Mighty Eagles, doing my thing. And that's just not normal. Like, what's the brace about? And these teachers and the principal found out what was going on in our house, found out my parents had gotten divorced, what had happened, embraced my mom. They knew my mom just had a strong desire for her kids to go to college. And they just got me involved in all kind of activities. And I ended up graduating at the top of my class. And got 5 full scholarships to the college of my choice, and chose the University of California at Berkeley. And not because it is the #1 public institution in the world, but because it was 15 minutes away from home.
Right. So you were able to stay close.
I wanted to stay close. The scholarship came with the car, so I left that with my mom. But I wanted to stay close, and just had a phenomenal experience at Berkeley. Just a phenomenal experience. I got involved in a sorority. Only black in my sorority. I was a DG, and one of the first African-American cheerleaders, and just went for it. The things I did in high school, I just said I can do it here too, and just involved in it and got a great experience. And then I had 13 job offers coming out of school, and I had 2 criteria. I said I want to have a job that pays me the most money and will allow me to be the boss. A supervisor walking in the door at 21 years old.
Oh, nice.
And so what was it? Yeah. So
Boss
what was
lady.
the job? I need to know.
AT&T. So I went to work for Pacific Bell, part of AT&T, and I was supervising. Okay, you probably aren't old enough to remember this. Okay, but it was back in the day when you could dial O and long distance operators.
Oh yeah.
And, so I supervised like 30 long distance operators. And I had the short evening shift, so I worked pretty much like 2 to 10, 3 to 11 shift. And it was basically the operators would get paid 8 hours for working 6 hours because they all had seniority and all that. And so most of them were in their 50s, 60s, some in their 70s. So I had all the short evening shift operators, primarily women. Oh my gosh. They taught me just about everything I know about leading right now. I love those ladies. And I love them. And you had some men in there too. And so I'd walk in. I said, you know what? I mean, they knew I was 21 years old. I said, I've never worked before. I just showed
fresh
up.
out of college.
I had some leadership. Okay, but I'm fresh out of college. And so, but I will love you guys. I will just take care of you. I will do what you need me to do. And all I want you to do is help me learn this job. And so they love that. They love the fact that I walked in saying, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm here to lead. And I was on this fast track management program and all that, so they knew that. And they said, oh, no, we want you, because, not a lot of women in the program. They're like, we want you to be successful. And we had huge success.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's so powerful, is admitting when you don't know something,
right.
Not being scared of that. We talk about that a lot of times in the sports industry. And we talked about, I had Jane Slater on, who's worked for the NFL Network, and it was like early in my career, I just felt like it was so scared to admit you don't know something or whatever. And now I'm like, fuck, I don't know a lot of shit.
And it's okay not to know. Can you imagine when I got in this job? I didn't know the business of basketball. I didn't even know Mark Cuban.
Right.
It's just some stuff you just don't know.
Yeah, so and then asking for help. Like, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to admit you don't know everything. It's okay to admit you can't do everything. And that's when you have a personality, like you do and like I do, like all of us do. Yeah. I feel like that's something that's really hard to be like, I need help. I can't do it all by myself.
But it's okay. Yeah. I learned back then, it's something I practice called the 3 L's of leadership, that in order to be a really effective leader for me, my job is to listen to the people, learn from the people, and love the people. If I truly do all 3 of those, I will be okay. Because I have to listen to them, I have to listen to what they're saying and what they're not saying. Okay, so I have to be an active listener. And then I need to learn from them. They know the job. I mean, they know the job. They know what's needed and all that. Yes, I'm going to set the strategy and do all that, but that's after I learn. Learn the environment, learn the people, what they need and all that. I mean, back in my AT&T days, I went to pole climbing school. I didn't have to go to pole climbing school. At that time, I was like a director in the company, and I had all these people out in the field. I wanted to learn that job just so I could have empathy, so I could know how to really serve them. And so I'm all about really learning the environment and what the people need, and then to love them, and to love them as people, not as employees, but really as people. So the people who get up out of bed in the morning, those are the people who I want to walk in our doors, and I want to love them for who they
Y'all
are.
hiring, I want to come work for you.
Yeah.
I need to be loved.
I will love you. I will love you. I will love you. I love your families, because that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. And then you get the best out of people.
Yeah. Okay. So that first job at AT&T.
Yes.
How long were you there? How did you move up the ranks?
Okay. So I was in that job for a year and a half, and then they offered me my boss's job, because we had a lot of success in that job. I mean, we changed a lot of processes, a lot of rules that have been around forever. I mean, even like these people had to sign up to go to the bathroom, and we had this light that if the light was off, you can go to the bathroom. If the light was on, you couldn't, because of course it's about the call flow and all that. And so you have to have the right number of people on the console to take the calls. And I remember they told me one time, and I think this was one of the big things that actually got me in a position where they wanted to promote me, because our results were so good. Our operators told me, I said, this is kind of like inhumane to me. Okay, I'm 21 years old. Like, why are these people like having to like sign up to go to the bathroom? So got with all the operators one night, and they said, we don't think we need that. Okay, we can see each other, we can look at each other, we know who's leaving. I mean, we trust each other.
Yeah.
And so let's get rid of the light. We've been trying to get rid of this light and this little process for years. And I'm like, yeah, let's get rid of it. So I go to my boss, and my boss is like, no way. No way, that is the process. The results are going to go down. So I finally convinced her to let us get rid of the light. We had the best results. Like the best.
Isn't that funny?
results.
One little thing.
We climbed to the top, and then the people loved it because they decided we needed to do it. I just kind of went out on a limb and just kept going and said, no, they know what to do. And so it really built trust in the office. We had great results. Then they offered me, my boss was leaving, so they offered me her job. And I didn't take it. And it was one of the 4 times it was the first time of 4 times that I turned down a promotion in my 36-year career, because there was nothing else that I thought I would learn in that job. And even my operators said, Cynt, no, you need to go and learn the business. Like, go and learn the network. It's a technical company. Learn how the calls are switched.
You wanted to be challenged more.
And I said, okay, I need to learn. I mean, I wasn't about money. I was making more money than I ever thought I'd make. I mean, coming out of the project. So I'm like, okay. And so the funny part is, so my second job was a network engineer. I was a central office equipment engineer. Well, I went to college, okay, to be an engineer. So I got a full academic ride, engineering scholarship. And then I changed my major because I didn't want to be an engineer. I took one business class and said, no, I'm going into the corporate world. I'm going to lead people. I love this stuff, blah, blah, blah. And my second job was an engineer. So I guess I had the aptitude for it. I was just meant to do it. And that's where I really learned our business. And so I remember I had a boss one time, he walked past me, and I'm sitting there with all my demand and capacity charts, and I'm looking at all this technical stuff, and like I'm into it, right? And he walked past my desk, Norm McBride, I love this guy. He said, and they called me Cindy back then. Okay, I'd say, my name is Cynt. He's like, yeah, Cindy? He said, Cindy? He says, what are you going to do next? And I looked up and I said something, okay, I can admit to you ladies, it was crazy what I said.
Okay.
It was stupid.
I want to hear it.
I've said a lot of stupid stuff in my days.
The same.
Okay, but I mean, I didn't know any better. I was 23 years old. And he goes, Cindy, what are you going to do next? What's your next job? Where are you going in this company? And I looked up at him and I said, I had my little stuff here, and I said, Mr. McBride, my job is to do my current job and to deliver the results of my current job. And your job is to worry about my next job. So I'm going to do whatever you tell me to do. That's your job to figure out my career. I'm just going to work. Now, how stupid is that?
It's insane.
Like, how insane is that? But I said it, and I can admit it, and I meant it. I meant it.
Okay.
And I put my head back down, and he said, oh, Cindy, follow me to my office. Come on, Cindy, follow me to my office. So I went to his office, and I loved this guy. Now, he had to be a busy guy. Okay? He engineering manager, San Francisco. He had the whole Bay Area. I mean, just a busy guy. He had a whiteboard and some easel sheets and all that, and that man spent 2 hours with me, at least 2 hours, showing me the whole company, talking about all the different departments, the career paths, all of that. And he says, okay, Cindy, now we're going to start laying out a little framework.
Wow.
A little framework for your career. Never leave your career in the hands of somebody else. He said, so I want to put you in a position where you can answer that question the right way. And so he laid it all out. By the time I left his office, we actually had a career plan laid out. So he taught me something very valuable, that you have to own your own career. Yes, you will get coaching, you'll get help and all that, but you have to own it. And I didn't know that at the time. I figured my job was really to do my current job. And wherever I was going next, he would just let me know. And so we laid out a great career path. And so then he said, oh, and your next job, you have to be promoted. You can't just decide, well, no, I'm not going to take it because we do have you on a fast track and we are trying to get you to director level in 5 years. I'm like, okay. So my next job was I went to the Human Resources Department as a recruiter, but it was a recruiter for the Network Engineering Department because it was at a time where every department wanted to send their own recruiter because they just felt like that person would know their environment. So I ended up being a recruiter for the Network Engineering Department, but then they added all these other departments kind of to my bag and all these other schools. I loved that job because I got a chance to interact with all the clients and I truly learned about our business. So at that point in time, at the end of that job, I did it for about 3 years. Then I got asked a question one time in an elevator by our VP. He goes, Cynt, what are you going to do next? Same kind of question. But I answered it differently. I said, Mr. Smith, I think what I'd like to do, maybe starting in February, is to go to the operations department. And I think I want one of the big groups out in the East Bay because I want to learn more about, I read off like 3 or 4 different areas because I had been recruiting for them, right? And he just looked, and he was actually from operations. He said, how do you know that? I said, well, I've been paying attention, and I could answer the question. And so I ended up in a big operations job, and it was different having somebody who looked like me in that job, and it was a fabulous experience. And then after that, I got promoted to director and had all these big technical and non-technical jobs. And I ended up in my 13,088 days at AT&T, I ended up with 15 different jobs all over the company, 3 different states. So California, 25 years, then North Carolina, 6.5, and then Dallas. Texas. It was fabulous. Mm-hmm. It was a fabulous career filled with all kind of ups and downs, personally and professionally, trying to have a family for 10 years, and just, it was crazy.
Yeah, let's talk about the family aspect of it, because as you're making your way up the ranks with AT&T, there's also life in addition to the career.
Yes.
How did you meet? Married, kids, all that stuff. Fill us in on the family life.
Okay, so my first year in college, so I had a boyfriend who was 3 hours away from me, and so he transferred schools. So literally, my first week in college, I get this call from this guy saying, "Surprise! I've transferred schools. I'm across the bridge at San Francisco State University, so I can be near you." Surprise.
How did you feel about that surprise?
I said,
that kind of freaked me out.
So you know what I told him? Now, see, it's so funny that you say that because some people, when I tell this story, they'll say, "Oh, that is so sweet. That was so sweet." I'm kind of like you. I'm like, you're kind of freaking me out.
Yeah. do I have a say in this whole thing?
Are we there already? Like, I wasn't quite sure we were already at the move closer to me
I knew
phase.
we were sisters when I met you, okay? Because that's how I was. So I said, hold up, boyfriend. I said, I have a surprise for you. I will call you when I graduate. This is my first week in college. I said, I'll call you when I graduate. I don't have time for some smooth-talking cutie who wants to play when I need to study because he's cutie, right? I said, I'm handling my business. Because the day I stepped onto the campus, everything was so big, and I'm looking at all these big buildings, and I'm like, I got to be big. Like, I really got to do this. And so many people were counting on me, okay? You know, where I came from, so many people were counting on me. I'm like, I got to handle my business, right? And so I put him on hold. I said, I would call you the day I graduate. So the day I graduated, I called him. And he tried to act like he didn't know who I was. Right? Yeah. And so I said, hey, Kenny, this is Cynt. He said, Cynt who? I said, boy, don't act like you don't know who I am. And I was fired up. I said, I just graduated. He says, I haven't talked to you in almost 4 years. I said, I told you I was going to call you the day I graduated. I just graduated at 2 o'clock. It's 3 o'clock. So 1 hour. It took me an hour to call you. I said, my mom is having a big party at 6 o'clock. She's still in the projects, but I'm going to help her get out. And she didn't need any help, but I just wanted to do that for my mom when I got out of college. I said, I'm going to work for the phone company. I was fired up. He said, I cannot come to the party. I'm engaged.
Oh, no.
I'm like, okay, like, that's not cool, okay? Because I told you I was going to call you.
You were supposed to wait for me, damn it, after you freaked me out by moving so close.
That's
and then I
right.
told you I'd call you in 4 years, and now I haven't. Yeah, that's...
Like, I have a plan. I have a plan, okay, dude.
You're not following my plan.
Right, you're not following the plan. And so he goes, no, I'm engaged. And I said, no. My mom's having a party at 6. She lives in the same place. I told you I was going to call you when I graduated. I just graduated an hour ago. I'll see you at 6.
Love it.
Next April, we will be celebrating 40 years of marriage.
Oh,
look at you.
Okay. Yes.
What happened?
amazing.
What happened to the
In fact,
fiancé?
okay. So people ask me that. So here's what happened.
Gotta know.
Here's what happened. So I don't tell too many people. Okay, but he said when he hung up the phone, and she said, "Who was that?" And he said, "Well, my girlfriend from a few years ago." And she goes, "Cynt." He said, "Yep." She says, "You need to go." She said, "You need to go. You talk about her all the time.
Whoa.
You need to go."
Wow, I mean, that like chills. I mean,
know.
that's when
Isn't
you
that
know
cool?
it's meant
I
to
know,
be.
I know.
Well,
So-
good on her for not being a giant bee.
No, and that's what I
You know.
said.
It's
It's
I
like
mean,
she knew. Maybe
and
she knew
Yeah.
something felt off, and he
Right.
was talking about someone else.
No, and
Yeah, I
apparently-
mean, that would
And he
suck.
says, "Well, I used to talk about you all the time, blah blah." So he said it wasn't nasty or anything. She said you just need to go to the party, if nothing else, to congratulate her. I mean, she just graduated from college. Okay, so you need to go. And
Yeah,
so-
good on her.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I dig her.
I
And when
love
he
that
told me that,
story.
I'm like, I love her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
Like I love her.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And then she ended up getting married, and so it all kind of like worked
Yes.
out. So it's not like I just stole her man.
Yeah.
Right.
So-
No.
So
It
40,
all worked out just how
40
it should.
years.
Almost 40 years. Okay, so we got married. So I had this plan. Okay, so you know me. I'm a
I
planner.
was just about to say,
You know
I
me.
think I've learned that about you.
Okay,
you
so
got
I
a
had,
plan.
I had a plan. Okay, so I said I was going to get married 2 years after I got out of college. So I'll graduate in 81, got married in 83. Then I said I immediately want to start a family, okay, and have kids and all that. And so we spent 10 years trying to have a family. I had 4, listen to me, ladies, second trimester miscarriages.
Oh man.
Okay, so of course, like I had to have these babies.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, gosh.
Hold these babies that I know are going to live a minute or not, or they're not living when I hold them. Sign a death certificate, get the footprint, all that kind of stuff. And so after the first time, I said, I don't want to do it like that again.
Yeah.
And if this ever happens to me again, I don't want any of that. It's too traumatic. And every time there would be some kind of mix up in the paperwork, and it would happen. So 4 second trimester miscarriages at the same exact point in time. Okay, so something clearly was just wrong. And so I had a couple of surgeries, and every time they said, okay, we think we understand what the problem is, and we didn't. I mean, and in fact, one time, and they never really understood what the problem was. One time they actually told my husband, they asked him, do you want us to try to save the baby or try to save your wife? Because I was hemorrhaging to death. And so he told me one time, he said, we just need to try to adopt because I don't want to be in that position
That's
again.
a terrible place to be.
And so then I told him, I said, well, I know I'm going through it all and blah, blah. He goes, no, I'm going through it too. And that's when he told me. He says, I got to stand there and answer a question about, do you want me to save your unborn child or your wife? He said, that's crazy. And I like to think about it, but I'm glad we were on good terms. Okay?
I didn't piss him off the day before.
I didn't just make him mad on the way to the hospital. And he ended up answering the right way. But I mean, I guess the doctors have to ask that. I don't know. And so we decided, okay, after the 4th one, we said, the next time we do this, because he kept saying, let's adopt. And I said, I don't want to. And I had people at work talking to me about adoption. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. I have a plan. I have a plan, and I'm going to do this. And so the 5th time we tried, we said, okay, this is the 5th and final time. And so either I'm going to have a miscarriage at that point in time, or we're going to have a full-term pregnancy. So we're on pins and needles. And every time I got pregnant, I suffered from severe nausea. So, I was hooked up to IV for nourishment, all that kind of stuff, right? And so we made it past that point in time. We're like, okay. We're onto something, right? Because we knew somewhere between 16 and 18 weeks something was going to happen. And we made it past there. And then at 20 and a half weeks, I went into preterm labor. And so that was weird to us because we didn't know there was anything in between. Either I was going to miscarry at that early point, or that 16 to 18 half-week point, or
Full-term.
full-term labor, right? Full-term. And there was something in the middle. And so the doctors ended up putting me in the hospital. I was literally, ladies, like in the hospital bed upside down, because, trying to take all the weight off the uterus, right? Upside down on magnesium to just keep me relaxed. I mean, I started hallucinating. It was horrible.
Jeez.
And after a week, I told my husband, I said, "This is not normal. This is just not normal. Tell him, lay the bed down, get rid of the drugs. We're just going to see what happens." And so immediately I go into labor. 21 and a half weeks, my daughter Carolyn was born. So Carolyn with the K. My mom's name is Carolyn and my husband's name is Kenneth. So Carolyn with the K. We called her Special K. And Special K was born, and they told us that she would live probably 2 days. And Special K lived 6.5 months and went through 5 different surgeries. She went through so much, but she was a fighter. And then it just got to the point we just kept praying, Lord, when she's tired of fighting, take her.
Yeah.
And so we just said, and so we just yielded to her. And the doctors will tell you that they learned so much from her. They end up finding the cure for her chylothorax condition. It was a surgery that they didn't know about, that I found out about from reading an article, literally, that they had given me. Ran all these references that, you know how mamas do. Okay, like, we're in there.
We're gonna fix it. We're gonna
we're
figure
gonna
something
fix
out.
it. Okay, I'm reading the footnotes. I'm running it because I was obsessed for like 4 months, because I was just at the hospital bed day in and day out. And finally, at about 4 months, they did the surgery, and they said, well, really, you should intervene at like 2 months, but let's go for it. And they didn't know about the surgery until I told them, right? And so they did all their research. And so I ended up going back to work because it looked like she was actually coming home. And then one day I just felt, you have that mommy gut, the mommy instincts. And I said, something's not right. And so I got up middle of the night and I called the hospital. And I said, is Special K okay? And they looked at her vitals and said, she's fine. She's fine. I mean, we're making preparations for her to come home. Like, okay. Go to work the next day. I stopped in the middle of a conference call because something just hit me. And I asked somebody to take over the call. And I said, I got to call the hospital. And I called the hospital and talked to her nurse, Janie. I said, I know I called last night. Is Special K okay? And she just stopped. She goes, nope, I just got on shift. Something's not right. Something is not right. I don't like the vitals. She says, I think you and Ken need to get to the hospital. Got to the hospital. I looked at my baby, and I said, she's gone. I said, you guys need to do an EEG. I need a brain scan. I think she's gone. I think she just had enough. And so for 2 days, ladies, they did not do the brain scan because they had gotten attached to her. They had gotten attached to her. They're like, no, Special K is going to be fine. She's a fighter. 5 surgeries, she made it through all that. I said, my baby is gone. And so for 2 days, they didn't do the EEG. And finally, that Saturday night, they said, we just can't figure it out. I said, please do that because I think she's gone. I think she just couldn't fight anymore. And so we spent the night at the hospital, and so we had a meeting at 7 o'clock the next day with the doctors. I overslept. That Saturday night, so the meeting was Sunday morning. That Saturday night was the first good night's sleep that I had from the time she was born. It was just a sense of peace. And my prayer before I went to bed, I said, Lord, just give them a sign. Like, I know it's over. Like, I'm the mom. Mamas know, right? I said, give them a sign. So when we got up the next morning, it was like 8 o'clock. I told my husband, we're late. We're supposed to be with the doctors at 7. So we spent the night at the hospital. So we run in there, and the doctors and nurses just rushed me when we got there. And I said, I'm so sorry we're late. I'm so sorry. I just overslept. Blah, blah. And they're like, that's good. You got a good night's sleep. And they said, you can't see her. You can't see Special K. We're working on her right now. I said, what's going on? And they said it looked like she had a brain bleed. And I said, okay. I said, I need to see her. And so they were like literally stopping me from seeing my baby. And they said, no, we have to warn you. Her head is twice the size that it normally is. I said, I need to see my baby. So I went and I saw her, and her head was twice the size. She didn't even look like herself. And all I could think about was my prayer. Lord, give them a sign.
And he did.
And he did.
Yeah.
And he did. And the reason I know it was a sign because, they finally did the EEG. That's what made them finally do it. And they said, there's no brain activity. I said, I already know that. So they put a beautiful white dress on her, called our family, put her in my husband's arms. They unplugged it. She was gone literally in 59 seconds. They said, we don't think, she might last a little while. I said, my baby will be gone in a minute because she's already gone. Okay, so just let my baby go. She's in heaven. And so by the time we had her funeral, they were literally talking about how my baby looked like a porcelain doll. Her head was back down to size, okay? Just a sign that they needed, okay? Just beautiful, beautiful. And at her funeral, and I actually stopped that day. They wanted me to talk to the families in there. And so I talked to all the families and just, because we had all been in there in the trenches together, right? I mean, I've been in there 6 months. And so at her funeral, one of her doctors, Thomas Eusterbrock, he took the microphone. He said, I need to speak. And we already had someone who was going to do the eulogy and all that. And he says, I need to talk about this little princess. Oh. And he said, Carolyn Marshall was here to teach us that we're not God. Everything that we thought would take her out, it didn't. And now we have new procedures. We know things that we did not know because of her. What an impact. It was beautiful. At 6.5 months, that baby was here for a reason. And like, she was chosen. We're all here for a reason.
Takes after her mom.
We're all here for a reason. So that's
what
the
it
story
seems like.
of Special K.
Yeah.
And so then that was, she passed away August 21st. And then the beginning of October, my husband just decided he had to do something. He had to take some kind of action to kind of get us back in the mode of wanting to have a family, but the right way, because I was grieving something fierce.
Yeah.
I literally left, when we left her funeral, we came home, and, we had our nursery all mapped out and everything, Minnie Mouse everywhere. And my husband said, you know what, I need to go to Fresno. I just want to go see my parents. I just want to go see my parents. And he said, I just want to go back with them because, everybody had come up for the funeral and all that. And I said, you go. Be with them, and I'm just going to stay here in the house this weekend and take a deep breath. I mean, I've been at the hospital back and forth for 6 months. We just buried our daughter. I just want to go to bed. I just want to relax. And so my husband got his stuff together, and he took off, kissed him at the door. And when he was leaving, I was getting ready to go up the stairs. I started up the steps, and I glanced up, and I saw her nursery. I laid out on those stairs and cried for 48 hours. When my husband came back home that Sunday, I was still on the staircase. I never made up the staircase. Same clothes, everything. And he said, oh, my goodness, have you been here the whole time? I said, I never can make it up the stairs. I glanced at that nursery, and I just thought, oh, my goodness.
All the things you've been holding in for so long just
like
came pouring out.
10 years of it. Like every second trimester miscarriage, her birth, her death, it's like it just all came pouring in on me. Because even after every miscarriage, it was like, okay, but I got a plan. So now what are we going to do? Okay, we're going to go have some tests at the hospital. We're going to do this. I mean, I had a plan. So it was just 10 years of just nonstop. Yeah. And at this point, because we knew that was the fifth and final time, it was like it was finally over. And then I had to deal with, like, Special K wasn't coming home to that nursery. And we got to do something different now. But the beautiful thing is my husband, I can still see it, he put his hand out to grab my hand to pick me up. And I always use that as an example in life. Like every single time I have been down and out, the Lord just sent somebody to put their hand out, because that's what we do for each other, and to bring me up. And he brought me up. He got me up those stairs. He said, don't even look up there to the left where the nursery was. We went to the right to our bedroom and just literally started the healing process. And so 6 weeks into it, I just became a workaholic after that. I said, okay, I know what I'm going to do. And I was already a workaholic. I was a crazy workaholic. I'm talking round the clock, nuts, to the point where I was driving people crazy. My staff had to talk to me about it. And so I came home from work one night, and my husband said, you know what? We're going to an adoption meeting tonight, beginning of October. I said, no. I had a plan. I said, I already told you, find an adoption agency, pay them the money, write them a check, and just tell them to leave me a little baby on my doorstep. No, that's what I told them. Like just like Moses or something. Just bundle them up and just leave them on the doorstep, okay? Because I am not going through the bureaucracy. I'm not doing all of that. No, it's too much.
You were exhausted.
I was exhausted. And so he physically picked me up and put me in his truck. He says, no, I already talked to the adoption agency. They won't take our money. And I love this agency to this day. They said because they told us there are too many kids in foster care, little kids, babies being born, in this county, the county that you grew up in. There are too many waiting for homes. And so they asked us if we would just go to this meeting first before we would talk to them, because they're all looking out for the kids. And I'm like, yeah. So he put me in the truck. we walk in the room, so we're late, okay? So because I didn't want to go. So like, I'm talking to him like I don't want to go. So finally we get there, 10 minutes after 7. There are only 2 seats in this big room right on the front row. And I said, I'm not going up there. He just says, come on, wife. Well, what I didn't realize is there were 2 social workers who saw us walk in. And they said, they looked at my husband and they said, that guy could be Anthony Young's father. They look so much alike. And Anthony Young was this little boy, 2 years old, who had been born in a bathtub, abandoned hotel room, abandoned when he was 9 months old with his 9-year-old brother taking care of him because his mom was taken away to jail and never told anybody that these 2 boys were left in the room. So the homeless people finally told the police that this woman had left 2 boys in the room. They didn't know. And so for 2 months, they were like that. And so at 11 months old, they found the little baby and the 9-year-old, split them up, different foster homes and all that. And so they had just put a file on the judge's desk that evening to put this little boy into a group home at 2 years old because that was the best permanent plan for him because nobody was interested in 2-year-old boys, right? So the social worker, and of course we hear this story later, asked the other social worker, what are the chances that you think they want a 2-year-old boy? And she said, slim, because everybody's interested in infant girls at the time. She goes, we have no prospective parents. She goes, well, I believe in miracles. They had just literally put the file on the judge's desk to be signed off on the next morning. And so she says, well, I'm going to go and follow these people. So I don't know this social worker is behind me. And so when they tell us it's going to be a 2-year process and we want you to fill out the paperwork, I guess I had a lightweight attitude, okay, because I didn't want to be there. And I told my husband, I said, I'm not filling out all this. This is too much. Well, I guess the guy heard me because, of course, we're in the front row. And he says, and by chance, if you don't want to fill out everything, just give us your name and put up in the upper right-hand corner what kind of child you're interested in. He goes, because I know some of you may not want to fill out everything. Because he heard what I said, right? And I said, fine. I put my name down. I wrote in the upper right-hand corner, 2-year-old black boy.
Wow.
Well, the social worker's behind me, and I don't know this. All of a sudden, his hand is literally coming across my shoulder and grabbed the paper. And she startled me, and I looked, and she says, are you really interested in a 2-year-old black boy? And I said, no, I just kind of made that up. I was really grieving, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And so my husband, and I started crying. My husband started crying, and he says, we just lost an infant girl about 6 weeks ago. And there's no way we can replace her. We don't even want to pretend like we're trying to replace her. He said, and besides, my wife is a hardworking woman, and she says if she doesn't have to go through the diaper stage, we can skip it because the baby needs to go right to daycare, right? Because I had this whole plan that I wasn't going to really change my life, which, of course, is a joke when you get kids, but that was my plan. And so I said, no, we are interested in a 2-year-old black boy. So this 1.5, 2-year process that this guy had described turned into a day. They called us the next day about this little boy. And we met him, and within 2 months, he was in our home. And he is my 30-year-old. Oh. And it just started a process. And the joke in our house is that my son saw both of his sisters on TV. One was a San Francisco Wednesday's Child. He was watching TV with my husband, and it came on. And then 10 years later, in North Carolina on a PBS show. So that's our big thing is he picked both of his sisters off television. And then when he was 5, we met the 14-year-old, his 9-year-old brother, and we got him too. So the Lord literally made my family.
Really? So 4 total?
4. So now they are 24, 27, 30, and 39.
Okay, so how did the reunion between the brothers?
Oh!
I mean,
oh Lord, it was beautiful. It's actually in the book because I had to tell it. We ended up meeting him because their birth mother passed away, and so they called us and said the birth mother just passed away and from AIDS, and so we want you to have Anthony tested. We're sure he's fine, okay, because it had been a while. But more importantly, his brother, who now is 14, said, "Whatever happened to my little brother?" That he would like to see his little brother. The mom has passed, but he'd like to see the little brother. He was having a hard time because he was old enough to remember the birth mom. And so they said, so we want to know if you, and this was 2 days after Christmas, they said, we want to know if you can give us some pictures that we can show him. And we thought about it and we said, well, can we meet him? Because we'd actually like for him to meet his brother. To see his brother again at some point. But we just want to go and meet him. So they called the foster mother. We went and met with the foster mom. And we didn't take Anthony with us. He was on a little play date. And so, because we didn't know exactly what we were walking into. So we go and we meet her, and then he comes out. And of course, he's looking like our son. Brothers looking just alike, right? And so we hugged him, we met him, and so we had all these photo albums, right? And so he said, can I go show my brothers, his foster brothers? And you could hear him in the back, and he is crying while he is flipping the pages. And he kept saying, oh, like we were at Disneyland and we went here. He had already like put himself in a situation. And so then we're hearing this and we're all in the front room just crying. Ironically, this woman lived right around the corner from my mom's house. That's how small the world is. And so we were all crying, and we said, if it's okay, we would like to reunite these fellas tonight. And she says, absolutely. So we told him, we said, well, Ricky, Anthony's at a little play date, but if you're okay, we want to take you with us to go and pick him up. And he said, oh my gosh, I haven't seen my brother. And so he's just crying. We're like, so we called the people and we said, okay, when we get there, we want Anthony to open the door. And so we pull up, Ricky gets out. We're like, no, you're going to ring the doorbell. And they open the door, and Anthony is standing there.
Oh my gosh.
I could still see that reunion.
Aww.
They're crying. Everybody's crying. He picks him up. It was just beautiful. So then we take him out, and we had already told Anthony, we're going to go and see your brother. And he kept saying, my cousin, because 6 of us, 6 of my husband, so he has a lot of cousins. And I said, yeah, that's fine. My husband's like, no, your brother. And I asked my husband, what was the big deal? He said, I needed him to know it was his brother. The person who saved his life, the person who had him in that shopping cart with the blanket over him, going through town looking for stuff to eat for 2 months. I needed him to know. Now, he didn't understand the concept of a brother, but it was important to my husband that he know that was his brother. And so when he opened the door, because my husband had like drilled it into him that morning, he said, my brother? You're my brother? Oh, Ricky was just crying. Mm-hmm. So we took him to have pizza, and they were playing video games. And so Ricky was on the ground like he was doing the pedals, okay? And Anthony was doing the wheels. So I went over there, and I said, Ricky, you don't have to be down there. Don't let him take advantage of you. I said, he knows how to drive this car. My husband came. He says, come back to the table. And I said, what's wrong with you? He says, can't you see he is just picking up where he left off? Mm-hmm. The last time he saw him, he was taking care of him.
Wow.
Let him do whatever it is he wants to do. And so then we just ended up, at 14 in California, they give him a choice if they want to be adopted. And he basically said, I want 2 homes. I want to stay here, because he had been in the same place for 5 years. He said, I want to stay here with Miss Minnie. Her name's Minnie Harris. He goes, I want to stay here with her and my foster brothers, but then I want to live with you guys too. So he would come over to us every weekend, our house every weekend, all summer, all the breaks and all that. And then I said, where do you go to high school? Because he's in 9th grade. He goes, Kennedy High School. That's where I went to high school. I said, honey, do you know Mrs. Gardner in the main office? He says, I love Mrs. Gardner. She always looks out for me. I love her. I said, that's my mother. He says, Mrs. Gardner is my grandma.
Oh.
And so literally overnight.
Oh, wow.
Overnight, he's got a grandma in the main office. So it just shows how small the world is. And and then we ended up adopting Shirley and Alicia. And so
it worked out.
It all worked out.
You had a plan.
I had a plan.
You had a plan.
And the Lord had an even bigger plan.
You're right.
Isn't that
You're
cool?
exactly right.
Even
My
bigger
baby.
plan.
And, I always think about something that I told one of my coworkers, another stupid thing that I said, right? When I had I think it was my 3rd miscarriage, and he said, Cynt, why don't you guys just think about adopting? We have family, we have friends who have 2 adopted kids. And, I mean, like, you can't tell the difference. These are their kids. And I told him something that every time I think about it, I'm like, that was so crazy. I said, Tom, there is no way you can love kids that somebody else had like they're your own. Now, how ridiculous is that?
Ridiculous,
But I thought
yeah.
that. Okay, I thought that. And I said, you have 2 biological kids, so that's easy for you to say. There's no way your friends are loving these kids like they had them. Okay, that was just outrageous. But that's truly what I thought. So when we adopted Anthony, and we have the picture of the judge, so that was our Christmas card that year. We sent out the Christmas card with the judge and everything, and it said, Anthony adopted us. And we're all smiling and happy and all that. So Tom calls me. He says, I just got the Christmas card. He said, what was that? He had a bad word, okay? He said, what was that about? Oh, you can't love kids. He said, y'all look pretty happy. I said, boy, shut up.
Like, happy to be wrong on this one.
Just happy to be wrong. Yes. So happy to be wrong.
Yes.
Yes.
So you've talked about so much stuff that you've been through. And I understand there's a cancer battle somewhere in there too. I don't even know how that would weave its way into all of this and how you can come out on as positive and happy and energized as you are. That's something I've been through too. Breast cancer.
Yes. Colon cancer.
And it changes you.
Oh, it totally changes you.
It really does. So
forever.
When did this?
Like forever.
When did it happen to you, and how did that change you? How did you come out on the other side?
Okay, so December 2010. Well, before then, so we moved to North Carolina. Okay, and so May of 2010, I'm in this corporate athlete session that AT&T had for all of their officers right here in Dallas. I was living in North Carolina, but right here in Dallas. And in that, as part of that, they give you this assessment. And there was this guy who does the whole corporate athlete thing. And you have to assess your physical, mental, and emotional or spiritual health. So I already knew I was going to come out great. I figured physical would probably be the lowest, but I was an athlete and pretty active, and the kids were involved in stuff, soccer referee, all that. So I'm like, okay, I'll be okay. So the spiritual, emotional scores off the charts, great. Mental scores off the charts, great. Physical was just okay, right? And I figured, okay, I had already stopped eating my fried chicken and ding dongs and said I got to get a little healthier because we
all hit that point in life.
Okay, it's like I just turned 50, the December before, and they asked you to do one thing. They said, pick one thing from your lowest category, one thing you can do to make it better. So pick one thing you'll do over the next 6-7 months in this area. And I said, okay, physical. What can I do? What can I do? And then I thought about the referral, the colonoscopy referral slip that the doctor gave me in December. Okay, so a few months prior to say, go get this done now. And you know what I did, sisters? I took that referral slip and I put it on my nightstand. And I have to admit, I had never planned on doing anything with it. I'm like, I'm pretty healthy, 50 years old. I don't need a colonoscopy.
I don't have time.
Well, didn't even quite know what it was. Okay, I'm like, whatever. I've heard that, but I don't need to do it. So I thought about that, and I said, okay, maybe I'll go and dust it off. So they gave us an accountability buddy. So my buddy Frank Jules, guy from New Jersey, he'd call me every morning, and I would just so happen to be going through the Starbucks line, right? He'd call and say, hey, you get that thing done? And I said, no. He goes, did you get that thing done? I said, I'm going to get it done. I'm going to get it done. So finally, I scheduled it, and I got a colonoscopy it was literally my last day of 50. So the day before my 51st birthday. And I always get all my medical stuff done the week of my birthday, okay? And so December 14th, I got it done. And that's when I got the call the next day at work. I was talking to these people. We were doing a routine audit. My assistant pulled me out and said, your doctor's on the phone. So it was the gastroenterologist to tell me. He goes, I'm sure your husband talked to you, showed you the pictures, which he had. He said, you have a tumor. He says, I don't like it. I can't really say what it is because I'm the gastroenterologist, not a surgeon, not an oncologist, but I need you to get to a surgeon immediately. This is my 51st birthday. And I always work on my birthday because I want to be there for the surprise parties and all that. Okay?
Of course, yeah.
Like I walk in like, what are they doing in the back? Okay, can I smell the cake? Okay, like what are we having today? So literally, I'm ready for a festive day. It's my birthday.
Yeah.
And I went to the phone, and he told me, to get to a surgeon. And I ended up calling the surgeon, met with him within the next day or two, and he basically said he didn't think it was cancer, but I definitely would have to have surgery to get the tumor removed, and no reason to cancel my holiday plans to go to California. He said, keep with all your holiday plans, and we'll schedule it for February.
Oh, no.
And I wouldn't leave his office. I kept looking at the pictures of the tumor, and I'm like, something's not right here. And I wouldn't leave his office. And I stayed in his office for an hour and a half. He even gave me like a tour of his medical library and all that. And I said, I need this out. We need to schedule the surgery. And he couldn't because there was no availability at the hospital. He wasn't available because at the end of the year, and I didn't know this. I don't know if y'all know this. But he said that's when a lot of the tummy tucks, facelifts, and all these, vanity surgeries happen.
Yeah.
Which I don't know why.
Insurance.
Yeah. And so I said, well, that's beautiful, but you need to tuck me into one of these, in between these tummy tucks and facelifts, because I don't want to keep this thing in me. And by that time, and it's, it's all psychological. I feel like the thing is growing in me by the second. And that's what I told him. I said, I think it's getting bigger like right now. And he goes, no, it's not. You'll be fine. And he finally told my husband, he goes, are we going to be here all night? My husband said, yeah, she's
when
not
she
going to
gets
leave.
something on her mind.
And so this was on a Friday. And so he had his staff keep calling. And finally, they found the hospital closest to my house that had something open up at 6 o'clock.
Wow.
That Monday morning. So I had surgery that Monday morning. They got the tumor out. Before I left the hospital, he told me that he didn't, he'd been doing this for 20 years. So in his opinion, it wasn't cancerous because I wanted to know when was the pathology report coming out. And I said, no, I just want to know. I need closure on this. And he says, okay, Christmas Day, it should come back because my surgery was on the 20th. And so he said, it takes about 5 days. I said, okay, so call me on the 26th. And I didn't hear from him. 27th, I didn't hear from him. 28th, I didn't hear from him. I finally called my primary care physician and the gastroenterologist. I said, I need to know what's going on with that pathology report. And I know he said he didn't think it was cancer, and he told me that several times. I just want the report. And then I was on a phone with one of my work colleagues on my cell phone when my house phone rang on December 30th, and boom. Got him on the phone. He says, he apologized for taking so long to call me back and all that. And he says, I hope you're sitting down. He said, I am in shock with this pathology report because in my professional opinion, I was sure you didn't have cancer. He said, you have stage 3 colon cancer, 1 lymph node away from stage 4. It's in your lymph nodes and blood vessels, and you need to get to an oncologist as soon as possible.
Wow.
He said, you don't have a day to waste. He says, and I feel really bad saying that because at first what he said, I have some news, it's bad and it's significant. And then that's when I just about passed out. Right. And then he goes on with all that. And he says, you probably hate me by now. And you know what I told him? I said, actually, I don't. I said, you just went up a notch in my book. Because for a man who was convinced, and we can all, it's okay for us to have our professional opinions based on, what we've seen. Obviously, it didn't look as bad as what it was. And so I told him, that's okay. I said, what I love, though, is for a person who actually thought I did not have cancer. And you only said you believed I didn't have cancer. You didn't say I didn't have it, right? You did your job. I said, you did your job. You didn't cut any corners. Thank God you didn't. You biopsied everything you need to biopsy. You did your job. And I'm glad you did your job because if you had just gone with your professional opinion, this could really be bad. Right. And he let me know it was bad already. And so I ended up having chemotherapy for 6 months, and it was brutal. And I did a Caring Bridge posting every round of chemo, which is what the book really is about. There are a lot of life stories mixed in, but it's about the cancer journey and all I went through in those 12 rounds of chemo. And it was truly, truly brutal. But I came out on the other side of it, and I've been, 11 years now, cancer-free.
Nice.
Oh, that's awesome.
I'm 8. We got a fist bump on that.
Sister, that's right. Isn't it beautiful?
It is beautiful.
When you're going through it, you just don't know kind of what all is happening, and your body feels like somebody else's body. Yep. But then you get through it.
You get through it, and everything comes a little bit clearer.
Oh,
right, like your purpose, who you want to be, how you want to treat people, how you want to go through the day. Which sounds like you had that earlier than I ever did.
I had it, but now it's just And I've always been a pretty optimistic and positive person.
Yeah.
And watching my mom go through the stuff that she went through, and just seeing resilience and grace and grit in action, so kind of passed on to me. But after I went through chemotherapy and went through that whole battle, I'm like, okay, I have a whole different perspective on life now because I've seen life and death.
Yep.
I saw life and death with my daughter, but I've experienced just some of the worst of it. And I have a good perspective on life. There's not a whole lot of stuff that gets to me. I take things seriously and all that, but I'm all about people, loving people, making sure they have what they need, the support they need, all of that. It just gave me a whole different perspective on life and what's important and what's not important. Some stuff is just not important. It's just not important.
It's just not important. It's not worth your time and energy.
It's just not.
So So I can see a couple of things after hearing your whole story and hearing about who you are at your core and your values. I can see, one, why Mark Cuban said, find this woman and bring her to my office. And I can see, too, how you can look at a franchise, an organization that is toxic, that is going through so many struggles, different angles, different people involved, different things that are happening that aren't supposed to be happening. And then the whole PR catastrophe that comes with that.
Yes.
How you can look at that and say, I got this. I can do this. I'm the one for the job. And that's what you were hired to do for the Mavs. And I know it's already changed. I mean, just a complete turnover, it seems like, with the culture. So just tell us a little bit. Yeah. Well, I mean, thanks someone at the top, and then those people are
right.
It filters down from the top. So,
exactly right.
So just congratulations for getting that job. First of all, I'm so happy that we finally get the chance to meet you, because I've heard so much about you, being a huge Mavs fan and knowing people over there. But tell us a little bit about just that, getting that call from Mark Cuban, and then what you've been able to do with that organization. It's a huge job.
You know, it is a huge job. Unfortunately, we have just been able, I mean, we had some great people there. I mean, we had some people who needed to go, okay? But we had some great people there who needed to be supplemented with some other great people and some leaders so we could get it done. And so basically, you know, I didn't know Mark when he called, but he had been given my name, I'm sure, by probably some people at AT&T, et cetera. And so once I read the article, I thought, if this is true, I'm not sure that I'm the person and I want to do this. But I talked to him for about 55 minutes. We had a great conversation. He was so genuine about the stuff that was happening and his desire to transform the culture and create a great place to work for these people. And so when I was walking out of his office, two women stopped to talk to me and they said, are you the person who Mark Cuban says is going to come in and save us? And I said, well, no, I don't have the power to save anything, but I know who does. And I kind of like pointed up, right? And I said, you know, what's going on? And they just both started crying and telling me their stories. Mm-hmm. And I had already told Mark, I said, let me go home and pray about this, because it's heavy, right?
Yeah.
Let me go home and pray about it. And so then when I was talking to them, and I had written a blog, let me back up. I had, that morning, I had written a blog called Impact, because I was impacted by these teenagers who were protesting in Parkland, Florida about gun violence and all that because of what happened to them. And then the Reverend Dr. Billy Graham had passed away that morning. So I have these teenagers and this 99-year-old that's impacted my life that particular morning. And so I wrote a blog about impact and kind of what impact am I going to have in this next phase of my life, because I retired from AT&T, started my own consulting company and all that. And so, but I was really struck by these two things happening that morning. So I was kind of like all in my feelings that morning. But I wrote this blog about impact and posted it. And so while they're talking to me and they said, we think you can really have an impact here, and they're talking, by the time I got to the car, I was like, oh my goodness, is this what I'm supposed to be doing right now? And I was blessed to be able to lead to actually lead it, but a lot of people did it. The effort to get AT&T on Fortune's 100 Best Places to Work list for the first time ever, right before I retired. Okay, so we just had a lot of success around cultures and bringing different companies together after all the mergers. But I was blessed to be able to lead that effort, but a lot of people involved in it. And I thought, oh my goodness, is this the time where I'm supposed to lead another effort like that? I mean, this is an opportunity to try to create a great place to work, to at least start that journey. I may not be here long enough to get us to the great place to work, but at least start that journey. I might be uniquely equipped for this. I'm like, oh my goodness. And so these ladies were just talking to me, and I'm thinking about that. I went home, prayed about it, and said, okay, I'm going to go and talk to him the next day. So I come in the next morning to talk to him. Before I could get to his office, some other women grabbed me, then some men, and these people were filing in and out of the conference room for 3 hours.
Wow.
Mark didn't even know I was in the building.
Wow.
And so he finally found out I was in the building, and he says, I hope the answer is yes. I said, the answer is yes. And so we were able to bring a lot of people together, and basically I laid out a vision that said we would set the global standard in diversity and inclusion, literally in the NBA. And so fortunately, the past 2 years, we've won the NBA's Inclusion Leadership Award. And then we laid out a set of values, the spell crafts: character, respect, authenticity, fairness. And that was really around gender equity, all that, right? Teamwork and safety, both physical and emotional safety. And then we laid out a 100-day plan that basically started off with a playbook around zero tolerance. What does that look like? Hotline, I mean, just all that. What does that look like to demonstrate that you're not going to tolerate sexual harassment? You won't say it won't happen, but you won't tolerate it, okay? And you try to set up a culture that basically deals with misconduct and inappropriate behavior. Then the second piece was an expressed women's playbook, a Mavs women's agenda, an agenda to elevate, empower, and just really encourage women. And then just all the cultural transformation stuff and basic operational effectiveness. So it had 4 parts, and we just rallied all the employees around. We had two investigations going on, MBA investigation, our own investigation that I started, and then we rallied employees around this 100-day plan. We took care of the personnel issues and the exits that we needed to take care of, and then we just got on this journey. And so I would describe us now as a good place to work, and in some areas a very good place to work. And hopefully one day we will be a great place to work. But we're on a journey, and so far so good. It's not perfect. We still deal with, just regular workplace stuff.
Yeah.
But we, it was all of us. Literally, it was a whole team of people saying, we want to create a great place to work, and we want to start that journey. And so that's what we're on. That's the journey we're on.
Love it. Okay, before I have one more question for you. Before we do, we got to get in our sponsor, which I think you'll absolutely appreciate this.
This
fine
is
woman. Yeah,
Devalore Medical Wellness. She's been on the show. This is Melanie Cobb. She's a mom. We bring in people on the show that want to advertise with us that relate. And that's what we love about Melanie. She's a mom. She was overwhelmed. She was working in surgery as a PA for a long time and just sleeping on couches at the doctor's office. Adopted a third baby. She had 2 babies, adopted a third. She said she felt a calling. Like something told her, I want to have a third baby, but I'm not supposed to be the one to carry this baby. I want to go find one. And she did. So after all of this happened, I know she has the Cynt seal of approval.
I love this woman. I have to meet her.
Yes, she's great. So she started her own company called Devalore Medical Wellness because so many of us women want to take care of our skin, want this, want that, but we don't know how, and maybe we don't have a bajillion-dollar budget for it.
Exactly.
And so what Melanie does at Devalore Medical Wellness is you can call her, you can go in for a free consultation, and she'll sit with you and tell you exactly what you need to work within your budget. She also, what I love about her, she tells you it's kind of like an escape where you can focus on your own self-care. Like her office is soothing. If you want to go in and just chat with her, she'll tell you her stories. You can tell her your stories. She's awesome. She's been on the show, and so we want our listeners to know she now has the Cynt seal of approval.
I want to go see her.
She wants to go see her. You have
I want that quiet time. Just that quiet time. Do whatever you need to do to my face.
A chemical peel. Yes. That's what she's been doing for us, and she's wonderful. We love helping support her. So if you're listening to this and you need that, if you want to feel all the good feels like we have in this show with Cynt, Melanie has those same feelings, and she will hook you up. Every new patient consult centered around your medical history, your medication list, your goals. She's qualified to do this because she is a PA. So go to our link tree on the Mom Game Instagram. You can see the link to her website. Go in, get yourself a free consultation, and Melanie will hook you up.
Yes.
I love it. You just did what I call the Hasu moment.
Yeah.
I said we always, as women, we have to practice that, okay, the Hasu moment. And all it is hook a sister up.
Exactly.
I love it.
Hook a sister up.
Okay.
That was the ultimate
up.
Hasu moment.
It
You're
sure
hooking
was.
us up, and you're hooking us.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I love it.
Okay, so I'm totally stealing that. Hasu moment.
Hasu moment.
Love
It has
it.
to be
Hasu
part of
moment.
our show.
And so before we go, I'm going to ask you the question.
Okay.
What's next? What are you going to do next?
Oh.
What's your next job?
Okay, so I call it Books, Boards, and Better. Obviously, the book is coming out September 13th.
Yes, we got it.
Which I do not have. It's okay. Don't laugh at me.
They're not even out yet?
September 13th. So you got it before it came out.
Oh my gosh!
Okay, but
that's so
and I have no.
special.
Okay, so I'm going to take off the week. I'm going to take off work the week of the 12th and go to New York and launch the book. But I have no book tour planned. Okay, and people keep saying, when is the tour? I have no book tour planned. I mean, we got a season coming up, so I don't know what we're going to do about that. We'll figure that out, okay? And so, but definitely kind of push the book and probably write another one day about motherhood, another one about careers.
Oh my
I have
gosh.
one in me called Rebound, and I actually had that title before I was in this job. I thought about that title a long time ago just
Wow.
because of my life. how the Lord's always allowed me and others to bounce back. So I've got like probably 10 books in me. So at some point I'll get maybe another one out.
I've got probably 10 books in me. That's going to be a quote for our.
I can't even manage a blog at this point.
Because you know what? I always I say that because I always make these titles. But I've been doing that for like 20 years.
So yeah, you got to have the books to go with the titles.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I have all these titles.
Got it.
So the books are in there somewhere, and maybe they'll come out, maybe they won't.
Amazing.
I mean, it's the book that took 10, so who knows? I don't know if it's come out. But anyway, and then I'm on boards. So I'm on some corporate boards, and I get a lot of requests to be on corporate boards and all that. And honestly, I just don't have the bandwidth because I have a full-time job.
Yeah.
And then, I started my own consulting company, Marshalling Resources, right after I retired. And so that's why my title was interim for a while as the CEO of the Mavs, because I needed to let my clients go, or at least scale back, because I just couldn't do that work. And so I still get calls all the time to go in and help them with their transformation efforts and all that. And so I really probably will really look at some of those requests one day and say, okay, I think there's more good work to be done, but I just can't do it right now because I don't have time. And then, so I call it Books, Boards, and Better. And Better is just about nonprofits, the whole adoption thing. I'm the chair of the board at Dallas CASA, Court-Appointed Special Advocates. Kathleen Laval and her team are doing a fabulous job. I want to help them more and get more kids adopted, because permanence and stability for children, a good education for children, that is truly my passion.
Wow.
And so I want to do stuff around that. So we'll just
so many options.
We'll see.
Dude, I feel like you have the world by the balls. Like, this is
I'm
so
having
awesome.
a ball.
Like,
I'm having a ball.
She's having a ball. See how she turned that around to make it PG?
I'm so, like, I am so, like, I don't, like, I'm proud of you.
I'm
like,
having a ball. But you know what? It's funny because
Makes you want to just go attack life.
I know.
I'm having
like,
a ball.
I want the world by the balls, too.
But I'm having a ball, but it's crazy stuff. I mean, I go through crazy stuff at work.
Yeah.
I mean, I got 4 kids, okay?
Yeah.
So they go through crazy stuff. But we still go through crazy stuff at work. I mean, especially being a woman and all that. I mean, so I go through some crazy stuff. We could just do a whole show about that all by itself, okay? But I think I have the right attitude about it.
I think you do, and that's how you can handle.
And that's
all the
how
crazy
you
stuff.
can handle
you
it,
keep your
'cause
head above water. You keep swimming.
Because you have to know when it really
Yeah.
is nonsense and it's not you. Okay?
Exactly.
And when you know it's nonsense, you know it's not you. You know that the Lord has a purpose and a plan for what you should be doing. You just have to kind of like keep focused.
Well, Cynt, you are such an inspiration. I'm so thrilled that you were sweet enough to come and join us.
Oh, thanks for inviting
Thank you
me.
so much.
I mean,
It's been amazing to hear your story.
I hope it's okay if we invite you back again.
Oh, I want to come
Because we
back.
can
I
talk
love
more
I
maps.
love y'all.
Yeah.
I love y'all.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, we love you
And I
too.
love what you're doing
We love
here.
you
Oh
too.
my
Thank
God.
you.
And the first time we met, we had a vibe.
Oh, we did.
Yeah.
We had it.
Well,
And
it's
now we
about-
have a vibe.
We do.
Yes.
We have
Yes.
a vibe. It's about empowering women.
It is.
You know, it
is.
really is, and nobody
Yeah.
embodies that more than you.
And being here for each other.
Exactly.
We need each other.
Yeah,
We need
you're
each
awesome.
other.
God,
I love
you're
y'all.
so cool. Okay, you're the best. All right, we end every show looking into your camera. That's your camera right
Okay,
there.
which one? That's mine.
Yep, this one over here, in the middle.
Okay.
Throw up the peace signs.
peace
Deuces.
signs.
Oh, I love
Mom
those.
game out. All right, ready? On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Mom game out.